At Thanksgiving, my sister found out I had $11 million, and my family demanded I give it all to her, claiming her childhood illness meant she deserved it more. Sometimes I still can't believe it. My own family, the people I sacrificed everything for, actually tried to sue me for filial support after I finally cut them off. They thought they had me trapped, but what they didn't know is that I had spent years building a company on one simple principle: verification. And boy, was I about to verify them. It all started on a Monday. The scent of roasting turkey, usually so comforting, just felt like another layer of artifice that crisp autumn day. I was leaning against the old wrought iron garden table at my grandmother Margaret's, my childhood sanctuary. My laptop screen glowed with third-quarter financials, numbers that represented years of grueling work, a world no one inside that house would ever understand. Then my phone buzzed. It was Caro and Slate, the auction house that gave me my first big break 15 years ago. Eden Clark, I answered, keeping my voice low. Eden, it's Jennifer. We've got a situation with the Singapore verification. Her voice, sharp with urgency, pulled me upright. The Burmese sapphire we flagged last month? The seller's demanding a secondary analysis. I glanced towards the house, where I'd just spent $6,000 on catering, a peace offering that I knew, deep down, no one would truly appreciate. Send me the specs, I told Jennifer. I'll run it through our latest algorithm myself. Inside, my sister Madeline's laughter suddenly cut through the kitchen window. That specific pitch, The one she used to make sure everyone knew she was having the most fun. Same laugh, same Madeline, just louder. Eden? Did you hear me? Jennifer asked, pulling me back. Sorry, Jennifer, I sighed. Tell him our verification stands. If he wants another opinion, he's welcome to try elsewhere, but when that stone fails every other test, he'll be back. Will do. And Eden? Enjoy your family time, Jennifer said before disconnecting. Family time. I scoffed silently. As if we'd ever been that kind of family. I closed my eyes, doing a mental calculation of how long I needed to stay before making a graceful exit. The math wasn't working. Grandmother Margaret had insisted I stay for dinner, and honestly, I never could say no to her. Suddenly, the sliding glass door opened. There she is. Madeline sauntered onto the patio, her heels clicking with deliberate slowness. Working on Thanksgiving? Mom says you've been out here for an hour. I offered a tight, forced smile. Just wrapping something up. Madeline leaned against the table, wearing designer jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than she should have been able to afford. Always the responsible one, she purred, her voice absolutely dripping with mock admiration. She peered at my screen. What's got you so captivated? Quarterly reports. She laughed, as if the very concept was utterly ridiculous. When I didn't answer, she pushed off the table and reached for my laptop. Come on, Eden. Family tradition, no work on holidays. My hand shot out. Madeline, don't. But she was already dancing backward, my laptop held above her head like a trophy. She moved with surprising quickness for someone supposedly dealing with ongoing medical issues. Look what I found, she called, striding into the dining room where my parents were arranging place settings on the table I'd paid for. Eden's been hiding in the garden, doing boring work stuff. I followed her, my heart hammering like a trapped bird. Madeline set my laptop on the dining table with theatrical flair. Who wants to see what has Eden too busy for family? My mother looked up, her perfectly styled silver hair catching the light. Eden, really, it's Thanksgiving. Let's see what's more important than us, Madeline added, spinning the screen around. The room fell silent. On the screen, in clean, professional typography, account summary, Clark Authenticity Group. Total liquid assets, $11 million. My father's face went white. My mother's jaw dropped. The silence stretched, pulling tighter with every agonizing second. My mother broke first, her face flushing a dangerous shade of purple. You let us struggle? The words exploded from her. All these years. Struggle. I repeated, genuinely confused. I've been sending $2,000 every month for. A measly $2,000? My father's voice rose, incredulous. When you had millions. Madeline's eyes widened with a theatricality I recognized from childhood, the prelude to tears designed to shift all attention. "I was sick," she whispered, right on cue. "You knew how sick I was." Her voice cracked perfectly. "All those treatments we couldn't afford. You owe me." I watched them, feeling strangely calm despite my racing heart. This was the pattern. It had always been the pattern. Eden, the responsible one. Eden, the afterthought. Eden, who was packed off to grandmother's house at 9 years old when Madeline got sick, because someone had to go, and it couldn't be the favorite. "Your sister needed specialized care," Mother continued, gathering steam. "We remortgaged the house for her treatments." My mind flashed to payments marked medical, mortgage support in my accounting software. For years of payments. $96,000. "And now we find out you've been hoarding money?" Father demanded. "Your own family in need? And you've been—" "My company," I said quietly. They continued talking over me. "My money," I said, my voice firmer, cutting through their accusations. The room fell silent again, this time with shock rather than surprise. Madeline recovered first, her tactics shifting instantly. "But after everything we've done for you," she said, her voice dropping to a wounded whisper. "All the sacrifices." "What sacrifices exactly?" I asked, my pulse oddly steady now. "Which sacrifices are we talking about?" Mother stepped forward. "This money is keeping a roof over our heads," she hissed. "Your sister's health." "The house is paid off," I countered, the words feeling foreign, yet true. "I checked the county records last year. It's been paid off for 7 years." Father moved to Mother's side. "You have no right to check our financial." "I have every right to know where my money goes," I said, cutting him off. "Every right to verify what I'm told." Mother scoffed. "Always so cold, Eden. So calculating." "This is family." "Family," I repeated, the word feeling strange and hollow in my mouth. Madeline sniffled dramatically. "I can't believe you'd do this to us." I looked at them, really looked at them. My mother, the financial manipulator who had orchestrated years of deception. My father, the enabler who always sided with Madeline, no matter what. Madeline, the entitled princess who had leveraged a childhood illness into a lifetime of privilege. And in the corner, silent but watchful, was my grandmother Margaret. Our eyes met across the room, and she gave me a subtle, approving nod. Something shifted inside me. A lifetime of being the strong one, the responsible one, the overlooked one. A flashback hit me, standing in the kitchen at 16, holding my SAT scores, 1580. My mother glancing at it, saying, "That's nice, dear," before turning back to Madeline's participation ribbon from the school art fair, proudly displayed on the refrigerator. I felt a familiar wave of guilt rising, the automatic response to soothe tensions, to make peace, to sacrifice. But beneath it, something else was growing, something that felt like unbreakable resolve. I felt a gentle pressure on my shoulder. Grandmother Margaret had crossed the room to stand beside me, her hand squeezing gently. Strength flowed from that touch, the only person who had ever truly seen me for who I was. My spine straightened. Years of resentment crystallized into something harder, clearer. I closed my laptop with a decisive click and slid it into my bag. The silence in the room was absolute as I helped grandmother to her feet, collected my purse, and walked toward the door. I paused at the threshold, turning back to the family that had never truly been mine. "Dinner's paid for," I said quietly. "Enjoy." A week later, the Chicago skyline glowed against the evening darkness. I was sitting alone in my office, the 43rd floor offering a perfect vantage point over a city that never truly sleeps. I'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for nearly an hour, my finger hovering over the mouse button, unable to scroll past the damning evidence. For years of monthly transfers, $2,000 each, labeled medical mortgage support. $96,000. Records don't lie, I whispered to the empty office. People do. I pulled up an archived voicemail from 3 years ago, saved in my cloud storage alongside every other piece of family communication. A habit developed through years of running Clark Authenticity Group, where verification isn't just our business model, it's my personal religion. My mother's voice filled the room, the familiar cadence of controlled hysteria that always preceded financial requests. Eden, we need to talk about the second mortgage. Her voice cracked perfectly. The medical bills for Madeline are piling up, and we just don't know what to do anymore. Please call me back when you can. I closed my eyes, remembering how quickly I'd responded, arranging the automatic monthly transfers without even requiring documentation. Family was family, after all. And Madeline had been sick as a child, that part was true. The rest? The property records website loaded on my second monitor. 3 clicks later, the truth stared back at me. Mortgage satisfaction recorded. Dated 7 years ago. No second mortgage. No current debt on the property. Of course, I murmured, reaching for my phone. Time to verify the medical claims. Madeline's Instagram account appeared on my screen, public, since she bills herself as a mid-tier lifestyle influencer these days. I scrolled backward methodically, cataloging posts against my payment timeline. February 9th. 2 days after my $2,000 transfer, Madeline posing with a Prada handbag. Caption, treat yourself. You deserve it. #blessed. April 12th. 3 days after another transfer, Madeline at a resort in Dubai. Caption, sometimes you just need to escape. #travelbug, #desert style. June 15th. 1 day after a transfer, Madeline at a spa retreat. Caption, self-care isn't selfish when it's necessary. #healing journey. My stomach tightened as the pattern became undeniable. Every monthly deposit followed by Madeline's luxury purchases, all while Mother's voicemails continued with variations of the same narrative: ongoing treatments, mounting bills, family sacrifice. The architecture of their deception revealed itself with brutal clarity. My mother as the mastermind, orchestrating financial manipulation across years with tearful calls strategically timed before holidays or family birthdays. Madeline as the willing accomplice, leveraging her childhood illness into a perpetual claim on my resources, while documenting her actual lifestyle for social media validation. Their strategy was elegant in its simplicity: manufacture crises that required my financial intervention, keep the amounts just modest enough not to trigger suspicion, and respond with emotional manipulation whenever I asked for details. A perfect system that had extracted nearly $100,000. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing beyond the financial implications. If they had been taking advantage for years, what happens when I cut them off? My entire professional reputation is built on trust and verification. Clark Authenticity Group provides certification services to the world's most prestigious auction houses. What if my family creates a public scene? What if they show up at client meetings? The $24,000 annual drain was ending tonight, which meant they'd need to find that money elsewhere, or come after me more aggressively. The Chicago skyline blurred slightly as I stared out the window. Grandmother Margaret's words from decades ago floated back to me: make something that's yours, Eden, and never owe them thanks. I reached for my phone again, opened the banking app, and navigated to the recurring payment section. My finger hovered over cancel automatic transfer as years of conditioning battled with newfound clarity. The hesitation lasted 3 seconds before I pressed confirm cancellation. A confirmation message appeared: monthly transfer of $2,000 to Helen Clark has been canceled. Something shifted inside my chest, a lightness, as if a weight I'd carried for so long I'd stopped noticing it had suddenly lifted. I took a deep breath, perhaps the first full one in years. My office phone rang, jarring me from the moment. The caller ID showed Stephanie Reeves, our PR director. Eden, sorry to call so late, she said when I answered. The London client wants to move tomorrow's verification demonstration to Thursday. Should I? Stephanie, can you meet me early tomorrow? I interrupted. I need your advice on a potential personal situation that might affect the company. A pause. Of course. Is everything all right? It will be, I said with unexpected confidence. I need to prepare for possible family fallout. I've been supporting them financially for years, and I just ended it. They may not take it well. Another brief silence. I'll be there at 7, she said, her voice shifting to the efficient tone I valued in my executive team. And I'll bring the protocol for handling unwanted visitors. After hanging up, I created a new folder on my secure drive: Family Financial Support Documentation. Into it went every transfer record, every saved voicemail, screenshots of Madeline's corresponding purchases, and the county property records showing the paid-off mortgage. I sent a brief email to building security, updating the authorized visitors list and removing my family members who had standing access. A separate message went to our receptionist, Sarah, warning her about potential unauthorized visitors in the coming days. My reflection in the window looked different somehow, shoulders straighter, jaw more defined. I built this company through verification, I told myself quietly. Time to verify my family. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Grandmother Margaret's name appeared on the screen. "You did the right thing," she said without preamble when I answered. I shouldn't have been surprised. She always knew somehow. Margaret had always seen through the family dynamics with perfect clarity. "How did you?" Helen called me ranting about ungrateful children and her upcoming bills, Margaret explained, her voice carrying the wisdom of her 82 years. "I figured you'd finally seen through it." $96,000, Margaret, I said, the number's still stinging. "And the house has been paid off for years." "I know," she sighed. "I tried to tell you, but you weren't ready to hear it." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment before she added, "Your legal team should prepare a statement of facts, just in case." After our call ended, I forwarded the documentation folder to our legal counsel with a brief message requesting a review of my financial obligations to family members. Their response came quickly. "No legal obligation exists. We'll prepare defensive documentation if needed." My executive assistant, Maria, sent a text, "Heard from Stephanie about tomorrow's early meeting. I'll handle any family calls that come in. You focus on London client prep." Another message arrived from our security director, "Updated visitor protocols. No one reaches your floor without explicit approval." Finally, an email notification from our London client, "Looking forward to Thursday's demonstration. Your verification systems have never let us down. We trust your judgment implicitly." That night, I slept without my usual 3 a.m. anxiety wake up for the first time in years. My morning ritual felt different, shoulders relaxed, breathing deeper, mind clearer. The bittersweet realization that my family relationships might be permanently altered sat alongside a strange, new peace. When I checked my phone, the notification screen showed 8 missed calls, 3 from Mother, 2 from Father, and 3 from Madeline. I set the phone down without listening to their voicemails. The boundary had been drawn. "I can love them from a distance," I told my reflection in the bathroom mirror, the words feeling both painful and liberating. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself. A week after Thanksgiving, the intercom on my desk buzzed. Sarah's voice carried an edge I'd never heard from my usually composed receptionist. "Miss Clark, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there are people in the lobby insisting they need to see you immediately." I was reviewing verification algorithms when her voice came through, but something in her tone made me set aside my work. "People? 3 individuals claiming to be your family." Her voice dropped slightly. "They're causing a scene. The woman, your mother, I believe, is demanding to see you and refusing to leave. The gentleman is throwing his weight around, telling security he has every right to see his daughter, and there's a younger woman filming everything on her phone." My stomach dropped. Helen, Thomas, Madeline, of course. The monthly payment didn't arrive. "I've explained you're in meetings all day, but they're being quite insistent," Sarah continued. "Should I call building security?" For a moment, panic flooded through me, the familiar reflex of a lifetime spent avoiding confrontation, especially with family. Then, surprisingly, calm settled over me like a protective shield. I rose from my desk and moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office. Chicago stretched below me, 42 floors down. The distance felt symbolic somehow. Straightening my charcoal designer blazer, I caught my reflection in the window. I barely recognized the woman staring back, composed, powerful, certain. Ethan, our security director, appeared in my doorway. "Miss Clark, I can handle this for you." His voice carried the confidence of someone who's managed far worse situations. "Just say the word." I turned from the window. "Decision made. Please handle it. They are trespassers." Pressing the intercom button, I spoke clearly into the system, my voice carrying down to the lobby. Sarah, I have no family by that name. Call building security and have these trespassers removed. I released the button, taking a deep breath before heading to the elevator bank. This wasn't a retreat, it was reinforcement. As the doors slid open on the ground floor, I caught sight of them immediately, their backs to me as they faced the reception desk. Building security officers were already positioning themselves strategically around the lobby. Madeline noticed me first, her phone raised theatrically as she filmed what was happening. She was sobbing, the same performance I'd witnessed countless times, amplified now for her social media audience. Eden. Helen whirled around, her face contorted with the righteous indignation she'd perfected over decades. After everything we've done for you. Thomas stepped forward, using his height to loom over me, a tactic that worked when I was 9, 16, 25. You think cutting us off solves anything? We raised you. You owe us everything you have. The security team moved closer, forming a protective barrier. I remained perfectly still, my voice steady. Please escort them out. If they return, call the police for trespassing. We're your family. Helen lunged toward me, only to be blocked by one of the security officers. How dare you treat us like criminals? This isn't over. Thomas growled, his face reddening. You think you can just walk away from family obligations? There are laws, Eden, filial responsibility laws. Madeline's camera kept rolling, but I noticed something shift in her expression, shock that her usual tactics weren't working. For once, she wasn't the center of this drama. Sarah stood calmly behind her desk, handling the disruption with professional poise. From the mezzanine above, I glimpsed members of my executive team watching, their presence a silent show of support. Near the elevators, Marcus Williams, a major client who happened to be arriving for our afternoon meeting, observed the scene with raised eyebrows. Quite the security protocol you have here, Eden, he murmured as he approached. If you need a witness statement, I'd be happy to provide one. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message from Grandmother Margaret. Stand your ground. I turned to the head of security. Escort them out. If they return, call the police for trespassing. You can't do this. Helen lunged toward me again, her fingers curled like claws. The security officer stepped smoothly between us. You'll regret this. Thomas threatened, his voice dropping to the quiet tone that once preceded his worst moods. This isn't over, Eden. Madeline's theatrical sobs had stopped. Her phone still recorded, but her expression had shifted to something I'd rarely seen on her face, genuine surprise. The script had changed, and for once, she didn't know her lines. I turned my back on them and walked to the elevator without looking back. The doors closed on the sound of my mother's shrill protests and my father's threats. Alone in my office, I sank into my chair, my hands trembling now that the confrontation was over. The composure that carried me through crumpled like a facade, revealing what lay beneath. Rage, grief, and something unexpected, relief. A memory surfaced, hiding in my bedroom closet at 7 years old after breaking a dish, learning early that showing emotion was dangerous. The pattern had continued into adulthood. Be strong, don't react, keep the peace. For the first time in decades, I gave myself permission to feel everything at once. The rage at years of manipulation. The grief for the family I never truly had. The relief of finally saying no. Tears came suddenly, violently, years of suppressed emotion flooding out. I didn't try to stop them. Each sob felt like releasing a piece of the past, washing away years of obligation. When the tears finally stopped, I looked out at the Chicago skyline, the afternoon sun glinting off glass buildings. Something fundamental had shifted inside me. The trembling in my hands had ceased. I'm free, I whispered to the empty office. The next morning, I created a detailed timeline of financial support and family demands, organizing everything chronologically. For years of monthly payments marked medical, mortgage support. Documentation of Helen's tearful calls claiming financial emergencies. Records proving their house mortgage was paid off 7 years ago. I reviewed the security footage from yesterday's confrontation, watching it with clinical detachment. My legal team received copies, along with the complete financial history. "This is quite comprehensive," my attorney remarked, reviewing the documentation. "Are you anticipating legal action?" "I'm preparing for every contingency," I replied. Security protocols at the office were enhanced. The receptionist now had a direct alert button connected to building security. The PR team monitored social media for any posts from Madeline about the confrontation. A cease and desist letter was drafted but not sent. Evidence was organized but held in reserve. Let them make the next move. 1 week later, a certified mail envelope arrived on my desk. I opened it carefully, extracting legal documents. A lawsuit. Thomas and Helen Clark suing for filial support, claiming their financial struggles were my responsibility. I felt my lips curve into a smile as I read through the poorly constructed legal arguments. Picking up my phone, I called my legal team. "They just walked into our trap," I told them, my finger resting on an evidence binder already labeled with the court case number, waiting for exactly this moment. "Let's proceed." My legal team exchanged glances. Miranda, head counsel, nodded approvingly. They walked right into it. On the tablet before us, Madeline's Instagram video played on mute, the office confrontation, edited to remove security blocking her lunge toward me, making my calm departure appear cold and heartless. The timestamp showed it had already garnered 50,000 views since last night. "Local Michigan stations are running with Helen's interviews," said Derek from PR, swiping to footage of my mother dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. "Thomas has been calling your clients directly." "And?" I asked, my voice steady. "None have dropped yet." "3 called to verify your side of the story." "I've built a business on verification," I mused. Fitting that it would save me now. The door opened and grandmother Margaret entered, elegant in a charcoal pantsuit that reminded me where I learned my sense of style. At 84, she stood straighter than most women half her age. "I caught the early flight," she said, taking the seat beside me. Her hand covered mine briefly, the same gesture that gave me strength to walk away at Thanksgiving. Miranda outlined our counter-strategy while I studied the evidence we'd assembled. Exhibit A, for years of monthly $2,000 payments marked medical mortgage support. Exhibit B, screenshots of Madeline's social media showing luxury purchases timed perfectly with my transfers. Exhibit C, county records proving the mortgage was paid off 7 years ago. "We don't panic," I told the team. "We don't engage directly. We continue business as usual." "Eden," Miranda interjected. "They're claiming you assaulted Madeline. The edited video is missing the security footage that shows the truth." I finished for her. "File our response to the lawsuit with all evidence attached. The truth speaks for itself." "But," Derek looked concerned. "Public sympathy is currently with your family. Sympathy based on lies collapses when facts emerge." I closed the binder with finality. "Set the deadline for withdrawing their lawsuit at 24 hours, or we countersue for fraud." As the team dispersed, I remained seated, something settling in my chest, not dread, but resolution. "You're not rushing to defend yourself publicly," Margaret observed when we were alone. "Would you?" I asked. "No." She poured tea from the service I'd ordered. "Sometimes silence is the best revenge." I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, reminded of childhood afternoons in her garden. I used to think if I just succeeded enough, they'd finally see me. "And now?" she asked gently. "Now I realize they've always seen me," I admitted, the admission feeling surprisingly liberating. They just saw someone they could use. The admission should have hurt, but instead felt like setting down a heavy weight. "I don't need their approval anymore." Margaret's smile was small but approving. "So, what now?" "We focus on facts, not emotions. We'll let the evidence tell the story." Over the next several hours, I continued ordinary business operations while Derek monitored the situation. Madeline contacted 3 of my competitors for sponsorship deals. Helen attempted to reach my biggest client directly. Thomas gave an interview claiming the medical expenses were legitimate, contradicting Helen's earlier statement about using the money for home repairs. With each desperate move, they entangled themselves further in their own lies. By evening, our trap was ready to spring. I reviewed the cease and desist letter before it was delivered, along with copies of our evidence packet. Exhibit A, I murmured, flipping through the pages. Every transaction marked exactly as Helen instructed: medical, mortgage support. Exhibit B, Madeline's Instagram showing her Dubai vacation, using #blessed, posted the same day my money hit their account. Exhibit C, county records proving the mortgage Helen claimed they were still paying was satisfied 7 years ago. That night, Margaret and I had dinner in my penthouse. The Chicago skyline sparkled through floor-to-ceiling windows, the view I earned through years of work they never acknowledged. Your team is impressive, Margaret said, watching me cut vegetables for a salad. They rally around you like family should. They respect me, I paused, knife hovering. That's all I ever wanted from them. I know, dear. My phone buzzed with a notification from Derek. Madeline's latest post was losing traction. 3 sponsors had contacted us privately, asking about the situation. The PR team had been carefully managing media inquiries without engaging directly. Building security maintained a visitor log showing Helen's attempts to enter yesterday. 2 clients had sent emails affirming their continued faith in my company. Industry colleagues had reached out offering statements supporting my professional integrity. Margaret's presence lent legitimacy to my side of the story, the respected family matriarch, choosing my truth over theirs. They underestimated you, Margaret said, watching me read updates. They always have. By morning, the first cracks appeared. Thomas called my direct line, which I didn't answer. Madeline sent a tearful video message I deleted without watching. Helen left a voicemail that started with "please" and deteriorated into the true nature of her feelings: "You ungrateful, cold-hearted." I disconnected before hearing the rest. At exactly 24 hours after delivery of our cease and desist letter, Miranda called with news. They've withdrawn the lawsuit. Her voice carried professional satisfaction. And the media narrative is already shifting. Someone leaked portions of our evidence packet. I didn't ask who. Some things are better left unspoken. Within hours, 2 of Madeline's remaining sponsors dropped her. A Detroit investigative reporter contacted our office requesting comment on a story about social media fraud and family financial manipulation. We declined to comment, but provided public record references that would be helpful for fact-checking. By evening, reports reached us that the family's social standing in their Michigan community was rapidly deteriorating as the truth spread. Thomas had been asked to step down from the neighborhood association board. Helen's garden club friends were suddenly too busy to return her calls. Madeline's local boutique partnerships were being quietly discontinued. The most telling sign came from Margaret's neighbor in Michigan, who reported seeing Thomas and Helen arguing in their driveway, his voice carrying, "I told you we pushed too far." When Margaret retired to the guest suite that evening, I stood alone at the windows, watching lights blink across the city. My phone buzzed with a text from Madeline, the first direct communication since Thanksgiving. "Please, Eden, we need to talk." I set the phone down without responding. The family unity that presented such a solid front was fracturing under pressure. They were turning on each other as the truth exposed their deception. For the first time since this began, I felt neither anger nor satisfaction, just a quiet certainty that I'd finally broken free of patterns established long ago. The invisible child they overlooked had become a woman they cannot ignore, cannot manipulate, cannot control. I picked up my tablet and made a note for tomorrow's meeting: Margaret Hollis Scholarship Fund, initial endowment, $2 million. The family that failed to value me had lost the right to my success, but others would benefit from what I've built. That felt like justice, more satisfying than any revenge. 3 days later, the morning sun streamed through my penthouse windows as I stared at Madeline's apology video playing on my tablet. My sister's eyes brimmed with practice tears, her voice catching at precisely calculated intervals. "I only wanted what was best for our family," she whispered into the camera. My sister, Eden, misunderstood our intentions. We've always supported her success. I paused the video, taking a slow sip of coffee. In the reflection of my window, I could see Margaret watching me from the doorway, her weathered hands gripping her walking cane. "Quite the performance," Margaret said, moving to join me. She always did have a flair for the dramatic. My phone buzzed with an incoming call, the fifth today from a childhood friend I hadn't spoken to in years. Thomas had been busy, recruiting people from my past to apply pressure. I silenced it without looking. "They're getting desperate," I said, setting my cup down. Helen left another message claiming her blood pressure is dangerously high from the stress of this family misunderstanding. Margaret's expression remained impassive. "And yet, she found the strength to call 3 of my bridge club friends to explain how you abandoned your poor, sick sister." My PR director's name flashed on my screen, and I answered immediately. "Eden, we have a situation." Maria's voice was tense. "Madeline's threatening a defamation lawsuit over the financial records, and Helen's attorney contacted us about emotional distress damages. Let me guess, they're also behind the sudden flood of 1-star reviews on our verification platform?" "Yes, and someone's been reaching out to your investors. Not directly identifiable as your family, but the timing isn't coincidental." I ended the call and turned to find Margaret still watching me. "They've never fought fair," she said simply. Before I could respond, my phone rang again, this time from our largest potential client. My stomach tightened as I answered. "Ms. Clark, we need to discuss this family situation before proceeding with our contract," said Jonathan Wells, CEO of International Appraisals. "The board is concerned about negative publicity affecting our reputation." The contract was worth millions. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in. Was proving my family wrong worth jeopardizing everything I'd built? After ending the call, I found Margaret still watching me. "Is it worth it?" I asked her. "All this drama could cost us the international contract." Margaret reached for my hand. "This isn't revenge, Eden. It's justice. Not just for you, but for every invisible child who was taught to make themselves smaller." Her words settled something inside me. I straightened my shoulders and reached for my laptop. "Call the legal team," I told Maria when she answered. "It's time." 3 days later, I stood in my office as notifications flooded my phone. The Detroit Tribune's headline blazed across digital platforms nationwide: "The Influencer and the Family Fraud: How a Michigan Family Exploited Their Daughter's Success." The investigative reporter had done thorough work. The article laid out a meticulous timeline, my monthly payments labeled for medical costs and mortgage support, county records showing the house paid off 7 years ago, Madeline's Instagram posts of Dubai vacations and designer purchases timed perfectly with my financial support. Most damning was the unedited security footage from our office confrontation, showing Helen lunging toward me while Thomas threatened. The contrast with the heavily edited clip Madeline had shared online was stark and undeniable. "It's everywhere," Maria reported, her voice vibrating with excitement. 3 of Madeline's major sponsors have already pulled out. The Tribune server crashed from traffic. I watched silently as my phone lit up with notifications. My team had executed the plan perfectly. The anonymous delivery of evidence to the reporter. The strategic timing after Madeline's tearful video had peaked in views. The comprehensive documentation creating an airtight case. Your foresight in preserving every email, every receipt, every transfer, it gave the reporter everything needed for the story, Maria continued. Margaret joined me by the window, watching the Chicago skyline as if it reflected the seismic shift happening in our world. "They never expected you to fight back," she observed. "They certainly never expected you to be better at it than they were." Reports filtered in throughout the day. Madeline's remaining sponsors had terminated her contracts. Thomas's business associates were distancing themselves. Helen's country club membership committee was convening an emergency meeting about her status. The family who had manipulated the narrative for decades found themselves unable to refute documentary evidence of their own actions. Their carefully constructed image crumbled under the weight of verifiable facts. My phone continued buzzing with interview requests from major networks, lifestyle magazines, business publications. I declined them all. Instead, I drafted a simple statement: "The evidence speaks for itself. I will not be commenting further on private family matters." Then I added a second paragraph announcing the establishment of the Margaret Hollis Scholarship Fund for overlooked students with a $2 million endowment. "That's the exact amount they tried to take from you," Margaret noted quietly as I showed her the draft. "It seemed appropriate," I replied. The money they coveted will now help students who are overlooked, just as I was. The announcement created exactly the pivot I'd hoped for. Business publications focused on the scholarship rather than the family. Drama. Industry leaders praised the initiative. The conversation shifted from scandal to philanthropy in less than 24 hours. Over the next 2 weeks, the repercussions continued. Madeline's follower count plummeted as her carefully curated image of authentic living collapsed. Thomas, whose professional connections had quietly distanced themselves, took a job as a greeter at a local store. Helen, once the social director of her community, faced empty tables at her usual lunch spots. The family that had exploited my success for years now found themselves without access to my resources or anyone else's. Their credibility had evaporated along with their financial security. I was reviewing final contracts for the international appraisals deal, now secured despite the family drama, when Margaret brought me a cream-colored envelope. It arrived by certified mail, she said, placing it on my desk. From Helen. The handwritten letter sat unopened as evening shadows stretched across my penthouse. Margaret found me still staring at it hours later. "Whatever you choose," she said gently. "Choose for you." I ran my fingers over the envelope, feeling the slight tremor in my hand. After everything, the deception, the manipulation, the public attacks, Helen still had the power to make my heart race. But as I gazed out at the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling like stars against the darkening sky, I realized the racing wasn't fear anymore. It was freedom. The unopened letter could wait. Maybe forever. 6 months have passed since the family confrontation that changed everything. The morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden patterns across the Italian marble floors of my Chicago penthouse. I run my fingers along the sleek quartz countertop, a deliberate choice for its clarity and strength, qualities I've claimed for myself. "Eden?" Margaret calls from the Lakeview sitting area. "Tea's getting cold." I carry the antique silver tray toward my grandmother, who sits regally by the window overlooking Lake Michigan. The teacups, the same delicate bone china she used when I stayed with her at 9 years old, catch the morning light. We've come full circle. Margaret lives in the guest suite now, with a private nurse who comes daily. At 83, she remains the backbone of my world, though her hands tremble slightly as she lifts her cup. "Nervous about tomorrow?" she asks. The University of Michigan commencement speech has occupied my thoughts for weeks. "Not nervous," I say, "just wanting to get it right." "You always do." Her eyes, still sharp despite cataracts forming at the edges, study me over the rim of her teacup. "You know," I say, "you were the only one who ever saw me." Margaret sets down her cup with a soft clink. "I didn't see you, Eden. I recognized you." Her weathered hand covers mine. There's a difference. The distinction resonates in my chest. Recognition. Not discovery, but confirmation of what was always there. "The London office opens next month," I say, changing the subject. "And Tokyo by Christmas?" Her eyebrow arches knowingly. I nod. Clark Authenticity Group has expanded beyond my wildest projections. What began as verification software for auction houses now serves jewelers across 3 continents. The quarterly reports show a 30% increase since last year, numbers I review without guilt, without feeling I should hide my success or apologize for it. The company thrives precisely because I stopped carrying the weight of family obligation that never should have been mine. The realization arrived gradually during therapy sessions. That being the strong one wasn't a compliment, but a manipulation tactic, keeping me responsible for others' happiness while diminishing my own. Later that evening, Maria arranges flowers for the small dinner gathering, just 8 of us, celebrating the legal team's final victory in securing international patents. My executive assistant has become more than an employee. She's part of the chosen family I've built. To authenticity, Daniel from legal says, raising his glass as we finish dessert. In gemstones and in life. And to Margaret, adds Sophia, my PR director, the woman who showed Eden how to recognize herself. Everyone stands, glasses raised toward my grandmother. Her eyes glisten as she nods regally, accepting the tribute. After dinner, I show them out and return to find Margaret looking at the envelope still sitting in my desk drawer, my mother's handwritten letter that arrived 3 months ago. "Have you decided?" she asks. I slide the drawer closed. I have. The letter will remain unopened. Not from bitterness, but from choice. My story continues forward, not backward. When everyone has gone, I open my journal, leather-bound, a gift from the young entrepreneur I've been mentoring. I write the final entry of this chapter of my life, pen scratching against crisp paper. The invisible child learned to shine and stopped apologizing for the light. I close the journal with a decisive click and place it on the shelf. Margaret stands in the doorway, her silhouette outlined against the Chicago skyline. "Ready?" she asks. I nod and take her arm. Together, we turn toward the future.